Hello and welcome along. So first of all, great news. The channel has just gone past 900 subscribers. Taken a really long time to go from 800 to 900, but that was mainly my fault. I haven't been uploading much recently. The first time I actually put in a video a week after the previous video, I suddenly got a decent number of new subscribers. So obviously I need to be better at uploading more often. So hopefully this video is also going out reasonably soon after the previous one. Now, what I have managed to do recently is continue to read quite a lot of 40k books, and I am rapidly approaching the end of the whole of the Horus Heresy series. And a thought that occurred to me recently is within the books and many of the other Black Library books that recount the stories of the 40k universe, there are many occasions where humans, unenhanced humans, face off against Space Marines. And it got me thinking, what would this actually be like? What would it be like for a standard human to come face to face with an Astartes? Now, this is a thought that occurs to people even within the 40k universe. And there's a phrase that they come up with called transhuman dread, which is this idea of someone seeing a Space Marine and being so overwhelmed by what they see that they can't really even function anymore. They're mentally and physically numb. The sight of a Space Marine, the sheer physicality of a Space Marine is terrifying, or more accurately, petrifying to a normal human. They just can't process what they're seeing because they're so abnormally powerful. What is it about a Space Marine that causes this? And it's not just their massive size, because they are obviously considerably larger than a human, or even the fact that they are usually wearing power armor, carrying weapons. They're massive weapons compared to a normal human. That's obviously frightening. But in the world of 40k, there is a very heavy presence of the military within society. So people are used to seeing armed men going around. They're used to seeing people in armor. They're used to seeing heavy weapons. They're used to seeing combat robots. The Mechanicum use enhanced beings that are massive and carry huge weapons and are frightening. But there's a difference between all of those things and a Space Marine. When a human sees an Astartes in its full glory, there's much more of a psychological impact that it has. And that is due to them being not just incredibly large, incredibly strong, well-armed, well-armored, and having this reputation for being nearly indestructible. But they move in a way that is unnatural for something that big. It's a bit like seeing a tiger or something in a cage and then realizing the door's open. It would be something like that. It's like this thing moves in a way that shows it has incredible speed and explosive power and grace, agility. A Space Marine combines all of the enhanced aspects of a human in one. So they are just beyond your capabilities in every way. So like you might see someone much bigger than you and think, well, I could avoid them. I just run away. Or I could just wear them out. I could dance around them or just keep running until they were exhausted. Or you might think I could outwit them. I'd be able to trick them into some form of trap. I'd run around a corner and they'd come around the corner and I'd hit them in the face. There's all sorts of ways that we can think of, and it might not be right, but we might think we could best someone who has an obviously superior feature to us, because we think, well, if they're great at one thing, they're probably not that good at all the other things, and I'm probably good at something, and I could use that to my advantage. But when there's a Space Marine, they're literally better than you at everything, and not just a little bit. They're so far beyond you in every characteristic that you literally stand no hope whatsoever. And it's that whole thing combined together that gives people this transhuman dread, this realization of just how insignificant you are to that being across the corridor to you, or that just came into the room, and that they could literally take your life like that. In some of the stories within the 40k universe, you might get the impression that a normal human could survive a little bit with a Space Marine for a while, particularly if they're in the military. Maybe they've got good training, they're physically fit, they're experienced. Maybe they've seen enough, they've been around on enough battlefields that they aren't going to be overwhelmed by that initial shock of seeing a Space Marine and that realization just how powerful they are, how much potential they have to do damage, to overwhelm you. Maybe they can control that initial fear and they can react with their normal levels of skill and be able to think their way through to a solution, or at least try. But even in this case, where you've got this person that's maybe a person who's a veteran of many campaigns and just has lost that initial fear, that initial shock value of seeing a Space Marine, even in that circumstance, they literally stand zero chance whatsoever of harming that Space Marine, or even or surviving more than a split second if that a Space Marine decides to kill them, because the speed of an Astarte is so high, their reaction times so high, their hand-eye coordination so precise that they could literally kill you with their finger before you would even know they were moving. If you were standing opposite one and they decided for some reason you needed to die, they could literally reach out with their hand, flick you in the forehead, cave in your skull, you'd be dead before you even knew they were thinking about killing you. That's how dangerous they are. And to be honest, even if they were the other side of a room, they could probably get to you before you could even notice that they'd started to move towards you. That's how quick they are. They're unnaturally quick, not just for a being of their size, they're just unnaturally quick. They would make the most graceful and agile acrobat look clumsy. That's how in control of their body that they are. Their ability to move with precise control over everything they do is really beyond what we can imagine as a normal human. Imagine, if you will, the best person at everything you've ever seen. It's like that, the heavyweight champion of the world of the UFC, Olympic gold medalist in pretty much in any sports, world champions, etc. Put them all together into one person who could do all those things together. That person is nothing at all compared to an average Space Marine. So imagine what that Space Marine would do to a normal human, to an average person. The gulf in ability is so great, it becomes almost impossible to imagine. I think one of the great scenes quite early in the Horus Heresy was when Horus is first start to turn to chaos. He gets wounded and he's brought up to the ship close retinue. And obviously they are in a state of panic because they've seen Horus, who they can't possibly imagine being harmed, let alone seemingly at death's door. So they've got Horus and they're trying to bring him to get some care from apothecaries. There's a crowd of humans that have gathered because they know something's going on, and the Astartes just walk through them like they're not there, because they've basically, in their panic, in their fear for the harm to Horus, they've switched off the normal self-control that they have around normal humans, and they just walk through the crowd, and as they do, they brush against people, they knock people aside, they step on people, but they aren't trying to harm people as such. They just do, because they're that strong, they're that big, they're that destructive by their very nature. Without even trying to hurt people, they can just crush people into dust. If you stand in their way and they don't notice you, they'll just walk straight over you as if you stood in the way of a bus. The bus doesn't flinch, or the bus doesn't even take a slight diversion of its direction. It just keeps going and you're flat on the ground. That's what happens if an Astarte walks over you. Even a crowd of humans, say 100 people, a Space Marine in armor is just walking through them like they're nothing. They don't have to try and hurt people. They're just going to mow people down. That's just the nature of what they are. And in fact, in the Horus Heresy, that's one of the moments where civilians within the Imperium kind of take a kind of step back and think, these beings, these Space Marines that we look up to, see as our saviors and see as heroes, etc., they're really frightening because they could actually turn on us, and if they did, we'd all be dead and be able to do nothing about it. Now imagine the situation where you're not just in a room with this metal-clad monster that is many times bigger than you and so superior to you. You're actually facing them on the battlefield. You're standing across from a group of these creatures. The utter terror that would come over almost anybody. I think you'd have to be a psychopath to not feel an overwhelming fear that would just stop you doing almost anything. And of course, in many cases, when Space Marines did fight normal humans, they basically got little to no resistance because the opposition would just stand in awe of and just not be able to do anything, and then they'd just be run over by the Space Marines without even really trying. And in fact, the Space Marines didn't really enjoy fighting humans a lot. Not well, partly you might say, well, they were just morally they didn't like fighting humans because it felt wrong, because they were out there to save humans from the aliens, from the mutants, and the witch. But in fact, they killed quite a lot of humans in the Great Crusade. And they didn't particularly like doing it, most of them at least. Some of them did. Most of them didn't particularly like doing it. But the main reason they didn't like doing it is because it was too easy. It would be like getting an adult soldier who's like top tier special forces. They've dedicated their entire life to being the best soldier they can be, and then saying, right, your mission is to go and kill those 5-year-olds. It'd be like, well, even if they had no moral objection to doing that, they wouldn't particularly enjoy it, because it would be like, what? I'm so much better than that. That's a waste of my time. That is a total waste of my time. I need something worthy for me to fight against. I want to prove my worthiness to the Emperor. How am I going to do that by killing a bunch of 5-year-olds? So if you were unlucky enough to find yourself on the same battlefield as a Space Marine, and you were expected to somehow hold the line, don't even think about actually defeating them, but at least you may well be in a situation where you've been ordered by your officers, hold a position, just delay them a bit, because that is realistic. You might be able to slow them down, just by putting your body in the way. But if there's enough of you, you might slow them down for a reasonable amount of time. That might be useful on a battlefield. It might allow other units to be put into position, etc., that could lead to an advantage in the battle. So it's possible. It happened all the time. Humans were used to fight Space Marines just simply because they were available. And if you put enough of them in the way, it will slow them down. It might channel them into positions where you can bombard them. It might give you some advantage. So what do? What is your highest percentage chance of survival? Well, the first thing is, do not get too close, because if you get within arm's length of a Space Marine, you're dead. They literally reach out faster than you can imagine, rip your head off, or just put a limb through you. You're dead. No chance. Keep them at a distance and have a very powerful weapon, because you can't hurt them physically. Even if they're not wearing any armor and you've got a sword, you've got no chance. An armored Space Marine, you've got pretty much little chance at all, unless you have a very powerful weapon. Maybe you've got a heavy weapon, or a special weapon of some sort, a plasma gun, a melter, something like that. Maybe some sort of high-powered rifle that could be used by a sniper, for example, with special ammunition. You might now have a chance of penetrating their armor. You might have a chance of actually wounding them, maybe even killing them if you get them in the right spot. Of course, you need to be able to do it without them noticing you're trying to do it, because as soon as they notice you're trying to kill them, they're just going to move out the way. They're too quick, too good at anticipating what you might do. They're way beyond what you can do in both reaction time, but also their mental processing. They will out-strategize you. Well, maybe a World Eater wouldn't, but that's the problem with the Butcher's Nails. A World Eater basically like idiots, because they're in such extreme pain all the time, and have this overwhelming desire to destroy things. Well, so they aren't probably going to beat you with strategy, but they're going to be so incredibly angry and so fast, so powerful, so unrelentingly destructive, you are probably going to shit your pants. So maybe you don't want to face a World Eater. But let's imagine you're an extremely disciplined individual and you've got a high-powered weapon and you're quite a long way away, and you can see them and they don't know where you are yet. Now you might just have a chance. Now, if you can't see them, then you're going to die, because if you can't see them, but they're there somewhere, that's because they've decided to not let you see them, and they're going to attack you at any moment from somewhere. They probably aren't even going to do that. You're just going to die before you even know they're there. So if an Astartes decides to sneak up on you, you're going to die. If an Astartes decides to hit you from long range with their own powerful weaponry, you're going to die. If an Astartes is distracted by everything else that's going on the battlefield, you might have a hope now. So you need lots of other people around. You need lots of things trying to kill those Astartes for you to have any hope of surviving. Because if there's like thousands of you and you're all at different positions, you're all firing different weapons, there's people, long way behind the front line firing artillery, and there's aircraft coming in, bombarding their positions, and maybe there's other Astartes on the battlefield on your side. Now you've got a decent chance, because there's all this other stuff going on. They're going to be focused on that. And if they're not focused on you, well, you've got a decent chance of surviving. Now, you might lose the battle and die anyway, but at least you've got a reasonable chance of living as long as your side wins. Because the Astartes is now going to be focused on the things that actually matter, not you, the almost insignificant human, but other Space Marines. That's their primary concern. Artillery, aircraft, tanks, Titans, Knights, battlefield autonomer, psychers. Basically everything else on the battlefield that's not you, because you're the least important thing on the battlefield. And in that kind of situation, you might well survive. It's basically you have the herd advantage. You are like a wildebeest in a herd of 10,000 wildebeest, and there's a pack of lions attacking you. Those lions are definitely going to get one of you. And if the one they decide to pick is you, you're definitely going to die. But you're probably not going to be that one. So you've got a reasonable chance of surviving. Well done. So that's the number one strategy. Stay away from them and be amongst many, many others. Now, there is one other hope you have, is that they're so superior to you, and they know they're so superior to you, that they might get complacent. They might just not take you seriously. They might give you that opening where if you've got a decent weapon on you, maybe you're an important person, a high-ranking officer, maybe you've got a very rich family, and you've got a decent, powerful weapon, and maybe a weapon that's much more powerful than it looks, a custom-made pistol or something, a sidearm that is very powerful, that doesn't look like it's that powerful because it's quite small. And maybe they just think, what a pathetic human, I don't even need to worry about that. Maybe they are so hyped up on their own superiority that they just don't take you seriously. And that gives you an opening to shoot them. And you get one chance. Maybe you are a good shot and you manage to hold it all together, all that terror, all that fear, all that transhuman dread. You've managed to hold it back. You've managed to keep it out of your mind, and you get that one shot and you do manage to hit them dead center. Maybe you get them right in the face or in the chest, and your weapon is powerful enough to go through their armor and destroy their brain or take out both hearts in one shot. Then you could survive. You could actually kill them. I mean, it's possible. Now, it has been done in a few stories. Humans, normal, unenhanced humans, have killed Space Marines using very powerful weaponry, getting the drop on them because either that Space Marine was distracted by other more important things, like we said before, or because they were just so arrogant that they didn't think you could hurt them, and they gave you that one chance and you took it. That is another way. That is really the only two ways you have if you're just a standard human. Now, of course, if you're a powerful sorcerer, psyker, if you're boosted with cybernetic enhancements, powerful exoskeleton, other ways of improving your abilities, you obviously stand much more of a chance, but still not much of a chance, because there are many cases within the lore of Astartes facing off against people like that, psychers, even other genetically enhanced humans, just not up to the level of Space Marines. Obviously, many aliens that have increased abilities and so on beyond a normal human. Imperial assassins who are enhanced in many, many ways, very dangerous people, but still none of them really have much of a chance against an Astartes in a fair contest. They have killed Astartes, they have defeated them in battles, etc. But even then, with all those enhanced abilities, they're still unlikely to win, generally speaking. And so for that unenhanced human to be on a battlefield where Astartes are looking to kill you is possibly one of the worst positions you could ever be in. So tell me how you would defeat a Space Marine in the comments. And if you think you can't defeat one, well, what would you do with your last moments? Just sit there and wait for it to happen? Run the other way? Scream for help? Maybe you just salute them and hope that the respect you've given them makes them think twice before killing you. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share, and I will see you next time.